Welcome back to the Right Path podcast, everyone, where being an author, an actual author, still matters. This is the podcast that's for authors, it's about authors, it's done by an author, where we share our journeys, we explore our creativity, and we examine the why behind it all. Folks, we have a magnificent guest today. This lady is a best-selling author. She is a past life regression practitioner. She's a cultural communications specialist. I mentioned she was a best-selling author. She's the author of Being Pyotr Ilyich, Tchaikovsky's Inner Life Revealed by Himself 130 years later. In addition to all of that, she's got a podcast series called Time Traveling, which we get to hear about today. So please welcome to our show, author Chris Nielsen. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great because I have this great honor of having this interview with you. And I must confess that, sometimes in, let's say, alternative therapy or in spirituality, we speak about synchronicities. These are things that happen in quite a magic, almost magic way, which bond one with each other. And I was simply stunned to discover your podcasts and to see that you are always underlining the idea of why. And I thought that it was great because in the introduction of my book, the most important idea that I'm stressing and underlining all the time is the fact that I'm trying to find a why of our existence, the meaning behind our terrestrial lives, let's say. And when I discovered that your podcasts are also centered on this why question, I thought that this is the perfect match between a podcast and a book.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Because I agree with you. The world is all about synchronicities that we don't
Mm,
even know are
yes.
coming, and when they happen,
And
it's
about meetings between people. And I think that my professional path until now is made up of, let's say, two completely different professional lines. As you have mentioned, and thank you for presenting me, I'm both, let's say, a holistic therapist and a specialist in arts marketing and in arts public relations. And all the time, in these two completely different professional paths, I thought that the far most important thing is meeting people. No matter if we speak about artists, about clients, about professionals from different professional fields, this is what I get with all the time, what really remains in my heart and in my soul, and what to some extent marks my life, no matter about what professional path we are speaking of. I do think that our life is made up by important meetings between people. This is, for me, it's the greatest gift that life makes to us.
wow, that's just amazing. I love everything you just said. I could not agree with you more. This is, for me, such an incredibly unique backstory to all of this. Your area of expertise, with what you talk about, with what you deal with on a regular basis, the past life regression practitioner and things like that. That by itself, I could probably talk to you about for an hour. Now, what I've
For
never,
hours.
at least, what I've never heard before, and this is me, this is just me and my limited experience, but I've never ever before heard of someone tapping into that past life, experience and writing a book based on it from that standpoint. What was that like? What made you go down that path of saying, this is how I want to do this? It's so incredible the way you did it.
Oh, Rory, that's such a long story. I'm trying to resume it in order not to speak hours and hours on end.
Sure.
So, um, the Tchaikovsky story, let's say, because my story is much longer, started somewhere in November 2019, so 6 years ago.
Mhm.
I had a great emotional blockage in my life, which was connected with my professional path. I must underline the fact that when we do start such a process of going to a regression therapy, it's never out of a simple curiosity. So I know that it may sound interesting that people want to know if they were Elizabeth the First of England or William Shakespeare or I don't know, Lincoln and so on. But if you speak with a professional, trained, and a really good therapist, I think that no good therapist would ever agree to take a client into regression only out of curiosity. So when you start such a process, it is a therapy. So it is something very serious, which starts from a particular problem that the client has. This particular problem might be an emotional blockage connected with fears, with sadness, with depression, but only if it is not already a clinical depression. So if the person is not under therapy with a psychiatrist. If you have problems in relationships with your parents, with your children, and so on, if you have patterns of behavior that keep on repeating in your life, if you have nightmares that keep on repeating, if you have phobias that you can't surpass or that you don't really understand, you don't have an explanation for their origin, if you have chronic diseases, if you have even physical problems and you consulted a lot of specialists, being either doctors or therapists, and you haven't found any result for a particular pain or a dizziness, if you have panic attacks. These are only a few examples of reasons why you should start a therapy, trying a regression therapy. And I also want to underline that a regression therapy might lead you in your current life or in a past life or both. Because when you have a problem, this problem has what I call a zero moment. The zero moment is the root or the main cause of the problem. So when you have a client and the client says, for example, when I am in front of an audience, I start to block myself and I can't speak a word and I have a great fear, then you might go behind and let's say rewind his or her life and go at 10 years old in the current life when, for example, the teacher at school humiliated that child in front of the class, and this might be the problem. And if the problem is in the current life, it's perfect. You don't need to go in another past life. Or you might have no problem in the current life, which explains that particular blockage, and then you might go in a previous life where you find the root. So for example, I don't know, it was we are in the medieval ages and it is someone who was killed in the public market in a horrible way as they used to do in the medieval ages and so on, or it was about inquisition and so on. So I'm trying to imagine a concrete example. So all in all, when you start a regression as a therapist, you don't know if you go back in the current life or in a past life. Or in the worst case scenario, the same problem might have more causes, more roots. So in this case, you must go both in the current life and in the past life in order to solve each of them separately.
Wow.
So when all in all, so I wanted to do a short description in a nutshell form of the whole process in order for our audience to understand the whole process. So when I started, I had this great professional blockage, which you may find very amusing. I was working in the artistic field already for, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. And I felt with all my heart that I didn't feel really fulfilled as a professional, a professionalist. And I felt the need to change my professional path. And wanting to change my professional path, my whole focus was on alternative or complementary medicine, because I have already studied, I had already studied for years a lot of branches of complementary medicine. And I had decided, besides my husband, who had also studied many branches of complementary medicine with me, to open our own healing center. And I wanted this with all my heart. Everything seemed all right, except music, because I had already promoted music for many years in my life. I had worked with a lot of important artists all around the world, and I was always, let's say, near the stage. And when I tried to switch my professional path from one profession to another, I feel completely blocked and stuck, and I really felt that I couldn't leave music. I felt that music was like almost a human being for me, like a child, that I was so in love with music and with the stage and all that is the atmosphere of a performing arts institution, that I simply felt that I couldn't switch from one professional path to another, although my whole being wanted it. And I found myself stuck. And I said, why? Why this attachment, terrible attachment for music? And I must explain that although I have studied classical ballet in my current life for 10 years, so I have a rich ground in classical ballet, I haven't studied at the conservatory, so I didn't pursue a career in music. So this enormous attachment was not logic at all. And when something is really without any logic reason in your current life,
Mhm.
almost all the time you will find a reason in one of your past lives. So all the time when I had clients who felt that they were a bit nuts and they had reactions or feelings that seemed to come out of nowhere, each time, but really each time, Rory, they were not nuts at all. So they had very clear explanation in their past lives. So nothing comes out of nothing. Everything has its reason. It's just that you don't remember it in your conscious mind, because your conscious mind uses to cover everything from your subconscious mind. And this is why you tend to forget your memories from past life. You tend to forget everything that happened between incarnations, so in the afterlife, and so on. So I had this huge blockage. I started to work on myself, and this past life as Tchaikovsky came back with an enormous force. And of course, that I understood why I had this great attachment for music. It was obvious. But working on Tchaikovsky, I discovered that from a therapeutical point of view, I had not only one, but many important blockages in my life I hadn't been aware of before, which all came from this particular life. And we worked many sessions because we had so many blockages. And while working, I kept on receiving a lot of very interesting, not interesting, I would say even astonishing answers from the world above, let's say.
Mm.
Because each time when you are doing a regression, you are assisted by light beings. And here it depends on the beliefs of each client. Some clients say they are angels or archangels. Other clients say they are spiritual guides. Other clients say they speak with the divine or with their higher self. No matter the way you choose to interpret and to understand things, what's clear is that we are always assisted by light beings beyond. And while pursuing this healing process for myself, I was receiving such astonishing answers about what a life mission is, about how we choose to incarnate, about how the script of our lives are conceived before we are born, about why we choose a particular family, why we are born in a specific body with its own fragilities, why we choose to live a certain drama or to pass through impossible relationships and impossible love stories and so on. And from Excuse me.
Mhm.
And after, I don't know, 4 or 5 past life regression sessions, I started to understand that all these great answers that were offered with such a great generosity, I would say, from the world above, were so important that were not only for myself. So I said, I can't simply keep all these great truths, because I thought that were some great truths with capital G, only for myself. And from that moment, as I said in the introduction of my book, I felt on almost, I would say, an almost sacred duty to pass this knowledge on. Because I said, listen, I spoke with my husband and I told him, there are so many books already about Tchaikovsky. Uh, I don't feel the need to add one more title, even if it's true that I do bring such a personal and intimate view, of course, on his own life. And I add some very intimate details that people did not knew or did not knew in such a great detail about his feelings, about his personal life, about his family, about his creative process. But all in all, I didn't feel the need to share his story, and this was probably very difficult for me also because it was my very intimate and personal story, and it was connected with my deep sorrows, with my love, and so on. So it was hard for me to enter in such intimate details publicly, but the other part of the story, what I call the second level of understanding of this book, which means all my dialogues with the divine, with this light being, I thought that are things that are interesting in equal measurement for all of us.
Okay.
Because there are things, I think there are general questions that are so important for our lives, no matter if we are man or woman, if we are young or old, if we live in Europe or in the Americas. Or so, all of us really have the same important, great questions about life on Earth. And I thought that this book might answer a lot of these questions. And I thought that in the end, Tchaikovsky is may be seen as a simple case study. Of course, he's a famous case study. Of course, that in this way, it's easier, let's say, to attract audiences. But for myself, this is first of all a spiritual book. And it's not only a biography, because I thought that I had this great opportunity to see behind the scenes in this laboratory where our lives, our terrestrial lives, are built up. And I thought that this is a chance that you must share with the others. And what I want to stress is that I'm not a special person at all. So any of us, but really each of us who really wants to understand why we are here, what is our life mission, what is our path as a spirit, not only as a being in one lifetime, has this chance to do exactly what I have done for myself. So it's, let's say, an invitation for any human being to discover his or her own path. Because what I'm also always stressing in my podcast I'm traveling to is that when you start this kind of healing, is not only that you heal an emotional blockage or a relationship, etc., is that you start to see your path as a spirit. I mean, you start seeing each lifetime, each of your personalities as, let's say, a chapter of the bigger book, which is your whole history as a spirit, and which is made up of all your incarnations on earth, of all the time you spend between life. And it's, Rory, it's fascinating. I mean, to discover how these lives depend one on the other, how each blockage determines a new arrival on earth, and how each, let's say, character you interpret, let's say, here on earth determines another character. So they are uh, all of them are closely linked to one another. And Shakespeare was really, I never thought that what he said, that we are all people are merely actors on the same stage. I thought that it was only a poetic way of expressing things, but it's not. It's the sheer truth. Really, we are all playing characters from one life to another, and it's extraordinary to peek a bit behind the scenes.
My goodness, I have so many questions right now. Just from listening, I love everything you just told everybody. That's so much of what's behind this book,
Yes.
and I appreciate you sharing that with folks. My goodness, I also want to just applaud you on powering through because I know you're having a little cough that you've been fighting, and you're doing a great job
Thank you.
of dealing with that too. But my first question, if I may,
Yes, of
is
course.
really in the past life regression area here, because so much of this seems to be exposing readers to that also. Um, is this something that anyone can experience, or is this more like people who can do readings and things like that? Do you have to have a talent for this, or is this something that anyone can tap into if they have the right help focusing through it?
Yes, anyone can do past life regression. So you don't have to be specifically gifted for it.
Okay,
But you see, in in everything that you are doing on earth, a bit of talent sometimes helps. So when you are asking me, anyone could learn to speak French? Yes, anyone can learn to speak French, but there are some people who learn easier and some people who find it a bit more difficult to learn it. So
sure.
it might take more time. So uh, anyone can do past life regressions or current life regressions, but what I can say is that there are people who may enter a trance easier or they may need more time. And generally, it depends on several aspects I'm going to resume right now. So, first of all, it depends if you are or not an analytical person.
Hmm.
But here's the great news. I am the nightmare of any therapist. So if I did it, you will do it too. So why? Because I'm a very strange combination. My husband frequently laughs and says that I'm going up as much as I'm going down. So I'm as much spiritual as I'm grounded. So I'm a very analytical person, and I think this is my gift which I'm bringing in this spiritual world, because I want to say something and I hope not to upset some of my colleagues. I think that sometimes it happens in this spiritual world that there are many people who speak in a too poetic or abstract way. And I always want to be very clear, very practical, very grounded, and I don't like to beat about the bush. So I want to be always very, very practical, and I don't want just to speak poetic words. So I'm an analytical person, and these kind of persons tend to enter a trance a little bit slower than a person who is more, let's say, keen on emotions. Because these kind of persons, like myself, are always in their mind, in their head, and they have thoughts. So it's a bit difficult for us to shut up the mind and the thoughts. But like, let's say, playing the piano, you learn it, and like in any other field, practice helps a lot. So generally speaking, if a person finds it difficult to enter in trance, then the therapist usually starts with 1 or 2 sessions of simply doing a hypnosis for relaxation without trying to access in the first place any current or past life regression, just for, let's say, getting the client accustomed with this state of mind, which is trance. And there are moments when you might help also the client by giving them at home hypnosis recording that they might use using their headphones at home, and they might get used to relaxing themselves. So it's all about getting relaxed. And what I want also to stress is that trance is a very natural, and I'm underlining it, natural state of mind. Unfortunately, during the last 100 years, sometimes this hypnosis or trance concepts were regarded like something strange or magical. I want to say that it's nothing strange or magic about it. It's a natural state of mind that naturally occurs each time when you are falling asleep between the normal state of mind and the deep sleep. This stage in between, where all of your senses become extremely sharp, and if someone says something, you are, oh my God, you woke me up. This is trance. So in trance you get very, very relaxed, but you are not yet in the deep sleep. So this natural state of mind between being completely conscious and being in the deep sleep is where we are staying for 2 or 3 hours for doing a regression session. Generally, when you are going asleep, this lasts for 1 or 2 minutes, but we are prolonging it to hours in order to go behind the conscious mind, in the subconscious mind, where your memories from past lives or from between lives are all stored. So it's not something magical. People who already practice meditation, for example, find it very useful in order to train for going into trance. So it's not something so special or so out of the ordinary as it may seem at first glance.
Okay, that's incredibly interesting. As you're explaining this to me, I'm thinking about the writing process, and I'm thinking about how, we as authors take what's inside of us, get it down on paper, especially. So I'm picturing this. For most of us, we have a writing process where we have to say, all right, I'm taking an hour each day, or when the mood hits me, I'm going to go sit quietly, and I've got my drink or my desk. Everybody has a thing that they do, sort of a
Mhm.
ritual on how they go about writing. With yours, with where it's coming from, do you find that you have to go into the trance, learn about the subject, the past life regression, and then somehow remember it all? Or do you have to somehow write from that place of when I'm in it, I'm aware of it, but then I'm not in it anymore? So this is fascinating to me.
Neither nor.
Okay.
So, you know, I like this word author very much, and I feel so honored that you tell me that I'm an author. But really, if I were to be very honest and humble with you, I would say that I'm not an author. Why? Because I didn't write this book, I transcribed this book.
Uh, okay.
And this is what makes, I think, its authenticity and its credibility and its value. Because every time when you are doing a regression therapy, you are audio recording it. You are doing it because maybe later you want to remember something, you want to come back to something which was said. And when you are a therapist, you record it because you want to give it to your client and to have a full record of what happened during trance.
Sure.
So all the time you are audio recording. So when I did this regression therapies in order to heal my emotional blockages coming from my Tchaikovsky past life, I recorded all the sessions. There were a lot of sessions. I repeated because I had a lot of blockages, and there were a lot of things I needed to heal. And moreover, because, as I said with such a great sincerity, I am the nightmare of any therapist. I heal very slowly. And because of this, we did a lot of sessions. From the moment when we decided, I say we because it was a decision taken together with my husband, when we decided to make a book out of it because of the reason I have already mentioned, because of the deep desire to share all the great truths that were given to me. We noticed that there were some points of the story where we needed more details, because when you do a regression therapy, of course, you are focusing only on the healing process, on the therapy itself. But if you want to write a book, the audience needs to have more context in some of the specific moments. So, in order to have more context, I did what I have never done before with any of the other past lives I have explored until now. I decided to come back in trance and to repeat some specific moments where we didn't feel we have enough details for clearly describing the situation and the scene. So we did it, let's say, for a documentary purpose, in order to offer a clear image of the whole story. I thought this was an ethic and moral, let's say, duty, if we wanted to share it with the audience, to offer a complete story. In the first place, our mission was only to heal myself, of course. In the second place, it was also to offer a complete. So in the end, we had 100 hours of audio recording, so a huge material that I had to transcribe. And I took months to transcribe each word I said under trance. So I wanted to be as authentic as possible. But then, of course, a huge process of arranging all this material started, because when you are in trance, you don't ever think about the way you are expressing yourself. So there are a lot of repetitions, there might be grammar mistakes, and so on. And moreover, there were a lot of moments, a lot of scenes, let's say, from Tchaikovsky's life, which were visited 3 or 4 times in different working sessions under therapy, because when you have a very important trauma in a particular moment, there are moments when you do not manage as a therapist to release all the blocked emotions in one session. Frequently you manage to do it, but there are some times when you must come back in another session in order to check if there are not any other emotions still blocked in your client, still unexpressed. So that's why we had some scenes which were repeating, and I had, of course, to cut them and to present them only once in my book. And moreover, what's important to know is that I tried to create a chronologic order, because when you are in trance, you are not always seeing facts chronologically in a past life. You are going following the thread, let's say, of an emotional blockage. If that emotional blockage manifested at 12 years, 25 years, and 50 years, you are going in this order in that moment, and you are missing all the other important moments. So in the end, there was a very important work that lasted, I don't know, almost a year, in order to prepare this material, in order to be pleasant for readers to read it. But everything I wrote, I repeat it once again, is what I really saw, lived, and said under trance. So the book is born out of transcribing my audio recordings. Everything that I spoke and lived as Tchaikovsky was transcribed in the book.
Nice. Okay. The as I'm listening to this too, you mentioned early on that this is more than just a biography. And I mean that's very clear after listening to everything you've said so far today. So I guess what I'm wondering is sort of behind the scenes and on your heart, the purpose for you in sharing this book in the way that you've written it. Um, Obviously, part of it is to tell Tchaikovsky's story, but then is it also to bring awareness to how you were able to gain access? Is it to bring awareness to the past life regression therapy? What was the purpose behind you saying, I want to take this entire experience and share it with people? What do you hope that they get from this?
Um, I, although I'm such an analytical person, as I have already mentioned, I do think that the most important decisions in our lives are irrational ones. So, um, I don't think that at that moment I analyzed it so much. It was, let's say, almost like an inner urge to let this book go towards the audience. And what I think is that I have very special relationship with books in this current lifetime. I must say, without exaggerating, Rory, that there are books that I have read that completely changed my life.
Wow.
And I'm incredibly grateful to the authors that wrote these books. Most of them are books of spirituality, let's say. And all these books came into my life in very specific moments. And I must confess something to you. Even last night, I read a book which gave me an answer I was searching for such a long time. And I found it in this book. I always thought in this life that to some extent, I don't know, my higher self, the divine, you might interpret it as you wish, speaks to me through the books I'm reading. I I I found so much answers, so many answers, and so much wisdom in the books I read myself. And I always thought that wow, there is such a great synchronicity. A particular book in a particular moment in my life simply changed everything. And I think that this is what I hoped, and I still hoping for my book too. I I hope that maybe one day a person who is under depression will read my book and will find in Tchaikovsky's depression and in his own, in my own healing process and in the answers I have received for healing myself, the answers he or she is searching for. Maybe another person who lives an impossible love, as I lived as Tchaikovsky, will find his or her own path by reading this book. Maybe another person who does not understand how and why life on earth develops as it is will find his or her own answers in this book. So I hoped to bring more meaning in our existence by sharing this book. I hope that people will simply find more answers, that sometimes life, unfortunately, if we see it superficially, might seem from time to time so absurd. And sometimes we have such great burdens on our shoulders. And I thought that my book might help some people to unburden and to find some answers. I think it was something simple in my heart when I felt this need to share it. I didn't think at big ideas like raising awareness on earth and I didn't want to focus people towards regression therapy because during the last years I practiced. There were years when I practiced regression therapy, and there were years when I had to dedicate my time to raising my son, and I had to focus on the other professional paths. So I'm not working all the time, and during the last years I didn't work constantly as a therapist, and I let's say I have no interest in advertising regression therapy or any other therapy. I want people to find their own therapy, their own path, their own voice. And if I can bring a bit of light in people's lives, that's my goal.
That's great. I love your heart posture on that one, especially. I mean, everything is just from a servant's heart with what you're trying to do right now. Let me ask you too, while we still have time, I want to make sure that we tell everybody you do have a podcast series called Time Traveling that goes along with the book. So what's the idea behind that? How does it work with the book? And, why that as well?
Thank you for asking. Yes. Um, Although I thought when I wrote this book that it is very clear and quite grounded, and I always try to explain things as simple as possible in the book. There were people who read it and who told me it was great, but I felt a great need to ask you more about this or about that. I feel the need to develop this or that topic. And uh, all of a sudden, I understood that people had a lot of questions regarding how the book was written, regarding past life regression therapy, regarding what's beyond this terrestrial life, what we find in the other dimensions, what's beyond death, how birth here on earth really happens, because I do have a very important focus on these two important moments that define our existence. I discuss birth and death in great detail in the book, these two processes, and I'm seeing these spiritual processes in quite an opposite way, because I see birth, let's say, like a trauma for the spirit, and I see death as a release, because I described them from a spiritual point of view, from the higher self's point of view, and not from the human point of view. And there were a lot of people asking me a lot of questions about birth, about death, and so on. And that's how the podcast was born, out of this desire to develop and to go into greater details than I did it in the book. So I'm coming back to the same topics described in the book, but I'm describing them in greater detail, and I'm also adding a lot of examples, both from my experience as a therapist and from my own experience as a client, because until now I have explored somewhere between 30 and 35 of my own past lives. So I have also a great experience as a client. I know how it feels to be under regression and to explore your past lives. And I add a lot of examples. All the time I bring examples in order for people to understand better how all this goes on. And again, what I wanted to bring with this podcast was a lot of meaning, because uh, I think that all of us have all the time questions. Why this happens to me? Why this relationship? Why I have this repeated pattern of behaviors? Why I was born as a man? Why am I born on earth? Am I born in this particular family? And so on. And I wanted this podcast to answer most of these questions.
My goodness. All right. Now, how many episodes are there of the podcast?
The podcast has around 50 episodes. They are all done, already edited, but until now, I have uh, made publicly on my YouTube, Spotify, and Apple channel the first 20 of them. And each week we are adding one more episode. So there will be 50 episodes in total, and until now we have 20. And I want to tell for the first time publicly here in your podcast that we are also preparing two new podcasts that we will release probably during summer or autumn. One of them will be a practical one, and it will go into energetic techniques, because I have also trained in Reiki and bioenergetical therapies, and I want to add this part too, because sometimes when you have an emotional blockage, although the most important thing is to go and dissolve that emotional blockage, either through past life regression or current life regression therapy or other therapy that you might choose, it's also important to solve the energetic imbalance, let's say. I will have a practical example in order for you to understand. Let's say that when you were a child, you were abused by one of your parents, and you have a great anger uh, about all this story. You might go in a current life regression therapy in order to release all this emotional burden, but anger is always stored in the liver and in the gallbladder.
Hmm.
And it helps a lot to do some energetic therapy too in order to clean the liver and the gallbladder from this energetic blockage. It helps and it makes the process easier and shorter, and the healing is faster. So, this is why I also add a practical podcast in order to learn people a few simple techniques about how to work with their own energy in order to heal. And the second podcast will be a very simple one regarding how to be a beautiful human soul, how to be, let's say, of a higher vibration, because we see too frequently a lot of wars, a lot of conflicts, and a lot of mean people around us. And I want to bring a bit of light and to um, suggest people to sometimes look to life from another higher point of view, fuller of light, let's say.
Nice. I love that. I love to hear that there are more podcasts coming. I think that's fantastic for you too. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm curious on the podcast you have now, the 50 episodes. When those are done, is that the end
Yes.
of the podcast? It's a limited series, or are you possibly going to continue that?
I didn't think to continue, but this will also depend a lot on people's reactions. So, if I will feel that people will ask more questions which are connected with time traveling podcast or
Hmm.
with the book being Pyotr Ilyich, of course, I will add more episodes in order to answer all the questions received. Until now, I think that I have tried to cover all the important topics from the book. But in case everything new arises, I'm open and flexible to add new episodes.
Wonderful. All right. Well, so everybody knows what's coming there. And how about is there a sequel in the works to the book?
That's a very interesting question. Another thing that I will say for the first time publicly in your podcast, so a
All
lot of
right.
premieres.
I love it.
Yes, it's like an opening night, your
There you go.
podcast. Yes, it's the fact. So I have just said that I have explored until now somewhere between 30 to 35 past lives. Uh, Out of these, I don't know, 6 or 7, let's say, I didn't count them because I don't think it's important to count them, are, let's say, famous lives. So Tchaikovsky is not my only past life, which is built around a famous person. Sometimes it's about being, let's say, famous, although I don't know, like this word at all, but I don't know how to replace it. So I'm publicly known, let's say, myself, or uh, let's say my husband or my wife, depending if I was a man or a woman, is famous. So in not in all these past lives, it's me to be famous. Sometimes I'm the wife of someone who was famous. But uh, honestly, I have never thought of keeping a writing a second book, because I think that it will transform into something unprofessional and unserious, to be that lady who writes book about another famous life. I think it would it might affect my credibility, although I know that I was this or that person. But I don't want to make, let's say, a show out of my past lives. I don't like at all this idea. So I don't think right now I'd write a second book about another past life that I have lived. Although I would have some interesting materials there, but I might probably write other books conceived completely differently. Uh, I don't say no, let's say, to a book regarding, let's say, the full journey of the soul through all the dimensions, speaking about the story of a spirit starting to the moment when, let's say, we were created, and then how we start incarnating here on earth, how lives link one with the others, what happens between lives. It might be a good idea, but I haven't decided yet upon it.
Nice. Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that with us, especially the stuff that, you've never shared before. I think that's fantastic. So,
Mm.
all right. While we still have a little bit of time left, I do want to get this out. Even though you don't look at yourself as an author, most of us do at this point. So let me kind of before I hit you with my last question, let me get everybody your contact information. We'll of course put it in the show notes and things like that. But how can people reach out to you, find out more about the book, find out more about your work, and that type of thing?
Yes, so thank you for asking me. So I have an author website. So any people who is interested in myself and in the book might search for chrisnielsenbooks.com. So this is my official website, but I also have my official pages on Facebook, on Instagram, and my YouTube, Spotify, and Apple channel for my podcasts, which are also Chris Nielsen. So people might find me both on my website, on my Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube official accounts. And of course, you might also find the email address there, which is public for anyone. So people might write to me and ask me whatever they feel to ask.
Perfect. All right. I love that. All right. So, my last question for you is what is your best piece of advice for authors who are out there who are really trying to, get published, who are not quite where you are yet?
Um, I think it's like choosing to have a baby. So having a child and being an author, yeah, I think it's funny, but I think it's quite a similar process. So start out of love and never think rational about it. I think that being too analytical will cut your wings. I'm always, Rory, very honest with anyone. So I don't want to tell nice things and nice stories only because they sound beautifully. My way as an author was very long and very difficult. So it's hard to advise someone to become an author because I know right now how difficult it might be. But I don't want to sound disappointing. So if you have an idea and you really love it with all your heart, don't give up. Put your passion in it and go forward. And it doesn't matter what happens, but it's your dream. And it might seem very strange that I'm going to say right now for a person who has explored so many past lives. I'm living each lifetime as it would be a unique one. So I should say that we should try to make the best out of each second that we live.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if we live many lifetimes or only one. Uh, so if you have a dream, follow it and don't give up no matter what. And I'll give you the best example and the most recent that I have. For making my book go to a wider audience, I have just decided to give up all my savings. And although I had to buy a new car because we are driving a 20 years car, we put everything in to make this book go to a wider audience. So do everything that you wish and follow your dreams. So this would be my advice, but I won't lie you, it will be a long way and sometimes a very difficult way. But if you feel in your inner heart that this is a call, follow it.
Nice. Chris, I love that. Thank you so much. Folks, best-selling author with the book Being Pyotr Ilyich, Tchaikovsky's Inner Life, um, revealed by himself 130 years later. Also, cultural communication specialist and a past life regression practitioner, and the podcast series, Time Traveling. We have to check that out too. Folks, Chris Nielsen, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing everything you did. It's
I'm
absolutely been a
extremely
delight.
grateful and it was a delight to speak with you. I'm so honored. Thank you for everything. And I just hope that you will have the best authors invited in your podcast. You are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Folks, this has been another incredible episode of the Right Path podcast, where truth still matters and words still have power. This is the place where authors know that every page is a step forward. So let's lift each other up, let's dust each other off, and let's all move forward together.